Hey everybody, it's ProcureTech time. Welcome to episode 21 of the Road to the ProcureTech Cup, the show that's all about demonstrating the art of the possible with procurement technology to procurement professionals. So I hope you're doing well wherever you're watching from on the globe. We've got a very Canadian show for you today. So we've got ConvergentIS here to present Rio, their responsive intake and orchestration platform for procurement, or your favorite new team member. And we'll get into what that means later on. Today, I'm joined by my co-host here, Sheena Smith. Oh, hold on. Let me bring you the same size here. She's Senior VP of Growth at RiseNow, your partner to design, build, and operate next generation procurement functions. How's it going, Sheena?
It's going great, Joel. Thanks for having me. Stepping in for Gabe today. And just because I'm American, the only American on today's show, doesn't mean my box has to be smaller.
No. You get the full size box.
I actually hear that you subjected some poor Texans to some Montreal weather this week, and they didn't like it much.
That's correct. It was like -20, and there was a snowstorm the first couple of days of the week. And I said, "You really picked your time to come to Montreal, right? Get the
I can't even imagine what it's like in Calgary for our two guests today.
Yeah, we'll have to ask them. In the meantime, let's just get to some housekeeping here. So the journey continues on the road to the ProcureTech Cup. Everybody in purple has been on the show before, have presented demos. Today we have ConvergentIS on the show, and their offering has sort of changed since I first signed them up for the show. So you'll see that they are much more than a P2P add-on for SAP today. And we've got 6 more weeks until we get to the ProcureTech Cup tournament on LinkedIn at the end of March. And there's still a few spots available to participate in that tournament. So if you're a ProcureTech brand watching and you're not getting my emails, the first went out this morning, just make sure that you're reaching out at joel@preprocurement.ca. The remaining spots open up February 12th, next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And if you want to be in the tournament, you want to have some fun, you want to get some awareness generated for your solution and for the market in general, this is for you. So that being said, let's bring our guests in today. We've got Sean and EJ. So Sean, CEO at ConvergentIS, and EJ, General Manager at Convergent Labs. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. And I'm also in Denver, Colorado. So
okay.
We're evening out the
I'm not alone.
Canadian American friend. But, good morning, everyone.
That's awesome.
We're all friends here. This is easy.
That's right. Whatever anybody else would have you believe. So today, company overview.
Joel.
Sorry?
Zing.
Yeah. Well, company overview, 7 minutes, right? So we're going to get into what is ConvergentIS, unique value proposition, ideal customer profile, straight into the solution demo after that. And then Sheena is going to get real and ask some questions about this. All looks great and pretty on the demo, but what about making it work in your context as a company? And then we'll map it to the ProcureTech market map. So that being said, EJ, I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. So we're super excited to show you some of the newer capabilities of Rio. Rio was launched this summer, last summer. It was the first B2B AI agent in the space. We're still trying to find some competitors for Rio because he's super excited to get on the field and compete. Overall, Rio can handle many different channels here. As you see, we're trying to keep things rolling with the agent buzz, and we believe Rio represents the first of a agentic resource planning category, ARP. So what Rio handles is the ability to converse. Your users and vendors can converse with Rio and also then handle all of these different tasks. So let's say a lot of work is done in Excel or PDF, Word, SharePoint, etc. That's totally fine. Let Rio handle a lot of that work. Let's say it's in between yourself and your vendor. It's done through email. It's done through chat. Rio now becomes that additional agent to handle a lot of the tedious work so you can connect with your vendor and increase your vendor collaboration. Now, here you have also the connection to your ERP and your SaaS systems. Rio knows all of the different ERP, SaaS, and homegrown solutions. As long as there are the proper integration points, Rio can speak and collaborate in and out of these solutions very well. But overall, Rio was built to solve a lot of the problems that are still happening within the technology, the business landscape today. So a lot of our customers are experiencing, still working in spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are crazy, and it's where all the businesses are run. Excel has still maintained to be that main source of business collaboration. Vendor inconsistencies. Although there's a lot of portals out there, vendors still use email. Email is still the biggest network in the world, and everyone just happens to be onboarded to it. A lot of people thought Teams and Slack and those chat messaging channels would come and disrupt email. It didn't. Email ended up becoming that formal communication channel where the chat messages became more of the internal collaboration channels. So now you plug Rio into both of these. Now you can optimize efficiency quite drastically. We have a customer today that had a large amount of very complicated hydrocarbon invoices sitting in their email inboxes for years, and it was causing a lot of issues. We plugged Rio in. Rio was able to pull all of those emails out, plug them in, and turn them into an S4 invoice. And now that customer alone has $3 billion in invoicing volume going through for them today. So email as a network is a key element of today. Lack of data synchronization. What you're going to see is a real live customer problem that they have where they are going into SAP systems to map material master data into their Excel spreadsheets, and then they have to take that Excel spreadsheet and manually key it back into an SAP system. Crazy. Let Rio handle all of that work for you. So this is the value of the Rio agent. Now let's get into the use cases that we're going to talk about today. So I mentioned data sync is a super big issue. Data synchronization is a big issue across the board. Well, when you have these intelligent models that can connect into these SAP systems and Oracle systems and what have you, it has the ability now to do a lot of that manual work where you're doing the swivel chair, right, back and forth, and you're looking at your Excel sheet, you're looking at your ERP system, and you're copying and pasting that data back and forth. Let Rio handle that. Relieves a lot of your workload. Now, this micro app thing, Joel gave a little teaser earlier. This is a very big breakthrough that we've had on the Rio side. We're going to show you just a sneak preview of what we're going to be rolling out this year, and we'll have a bigger product launch later in the year. But the ability to take that whole ecosystem of emails and chat and SharePoint, Excel, PDF, and then all the data coming from all these other systems, let Rio absorb that, and let's create a micro app on top of it to then allow you to communicate more properly with your vendors, and you don't have to build anything. Let Rio build the entire thing with that data structure. Requisitioning. Rio can create requisitions and just update you via email, letting you know I created that requisition. Invoicing. Your vendors are still likely sending you invoices via email today. No matter how many portals there are, they're still doing it. Well, Rio can read any document that comes through invoice, whether that's a PDF, whether that's an image, even handwritten invoices. Rio is able to take that, read it, no OCR. Rio can read these documents and turn them into digital transactional documents. So that also means Rio also is multilingual. Rio knows how to translate French to English, German to Dutch, Mandarin to Spanish. Rio already has all of that built in. And then it can create it in your backend, that invoice in your backend system. Finally, status updates are constantly coming through on email for that more formal communication, and then Teams for that more internal collaboration. When we launched Rio earlier this year, we had an entire demo video posted live on YouTube. My colleague, Sarah, is going to post that in the chat if you want to see how we've utilized Teams and brought the entire P2P source to pay landscape into Microsoft Teams to allow you and your company to collaborate through Teams. But today we're going to focus a lot on email. So let's get into these 5 use cases. Sync with an ERP in Excel, creating a micro app, creating a requisition, creating an invoice, and then constantly viewing status updates. So here is the Rio dashboard. Now, the Rio dashboard is connected to your OneDrive. So Rio already has all of your OneDrive information, including this super complicated Excel spreadsheet that runs a lot of your RFQs today. So if you're a customer like the ones we've been working with, they still run this Excel spreadsheet to collaborate with their vendors. So they'll send this out, their vendors will go and they'll provide their bid. But before that, they need to populate the material master data from the backend SAP system. Super complicated stuff that requires access to both systems and then a lot of patience with that swivel chair. Well, the beauty of Rio is Rio knows all of the data coming from that particular, in that particular Excel document and what's sitting in SAP. So if I just launch this, prompt Rio to launch this particular workflow, I'm going to do the mapping, create an RFQ, and then create a requisition once the vendors have bid on that RFQ. So here I will launch this workflow. So you can see the workflow has successfully started. You can see down here, it will start running. And then when I go and I look at that particular Excel document, you can see you have server rack, you have material description, and then boom, look at that material column right there. My hands are up. If anyone was in this document, you would see their initials. Rio is going into the backend SAP system, looking at the material description, the equipment type, everything that's in this document, and populating that one by one, doing all of that work for you. And the beauty is Rio works 24/7. Rio doesn't have to, clock out. So if you have thousands of line items, Rio can go through line by line and do this mapping for you. Now, this alone has blown away our customers. This ability to do the swivel chair into a backend SAP system and populate it in an Excel spreadsheet is a crazy, crazy step forward for our customers because they still work in this Excel spreadsheet. But what else can Rio do?
I was going to add one more thing in here, EJ.
Please,
this is the step that a lot of people skip, right? There's a lot of free text purchasing out there where people don't actually buy the material, which means that it becomes invisible for all of the other things that you need to be able to have that data of how many of those things that you bought, the widgets, the gaskets, whatever it was. And so when Rio can go map that to your material master autonomously, this creates what you need as an ingredient of it's doing the hard work for you that most people will push back on a supply chain or a procurement team and say, no, we don't have time. And it's done it. So we've just done this with what would have taken most folks at least 20, 30, 45 minutes or an hour just to do a dozen lines. And it's done. Now you've got a spreadsheet with 1,000 of these. Sure, it needs an extra few minutes, but it's done.
Yeah, the line. I mean, we've built as many autonomous flows as we can across the entire suite of business processes for customers. The beauty is you plug in your manual inputs where you want. You want a manual task, you want an approval, you want a review. It's very easy. Just drag and drop and assign it to the proper group or users. But allow this to be as autonomized as possible. This alone causes a lot of frustration within organizations. Why am I doing all this manual work? Imagine the relationships between you and your employees. And then when you will see what Rio can do with vendors, imagine how much better your relationships with vendors get now as well. One point as well that we had from a customer on site when we asked them how their time has been going with Rio, they said, oh, it's great. I've saved half a day. And then the executive that was sitting in the room said, oh, half a day, like over a month, you've saved like 6 hours of work. And the person goes, no, today I have saved half of my day just today using Rio. So imagine every single day, the amount of work you have is cut in half right now. Rio's not getting any dumber, going to be getting a lot smarter if you're following these AI models. So this is just one step forward, and let's move on to the next one. So this is how we did the Excel sync with SAP to pull the material master data. Rio from there is going to turn this into an RFQ and send this out to the vendors. Vendors are still bidding via email and Excel and PDF and even text. Well, in the next screen, you're going to see this is the RFQ response coming from the vendors. So it's formulated to show all of the RFQ details. And then in the bid console below, you can see these are the suppliers with their overall bid and their performance rating coming from their backend systems. And then if you want to award the contract, you can click the button here and it lets you know you can create a requisition in SAP. But what's so special about this screen? Why does this screen matter? I or no one in my company did a single thing to build out this screen. Rio took all of the data that came in from that Excel spreadsheet and all of the vendor bids and built the screen. This is an incredible step forward for us. This is what we were talking to Joel about last week. This is only a snippet of actually the bigger picture of these micro apps. And then you have the ability to communicate with Rio. Rio built this button. It has the workflows built in the background and this pop-up that then links to a purchase requisition in SAP. because it has those workflows built in the background. It understands, oh, this needs, once it's awarded, to create a requisition in SAP. And then if you want to change this screen, maybe make it a bit more relevant to your company's design, add your logos. I mean, it added this SAP logo. Like, these are some incredible things that Rio can do. You can just chat with Rio right here to create this screen and craft it how you wish. This is going to unlock so much creativity for users, in administrators, and even for your vendors. Imagine what you can do with this capability to build these micro apps with Rio. Now, we will set the guardrails to ensure, I'm sure my chief architect Bram is on the call right now. He calls it EJ syndrome, because I want to build whatever. I want to build all these things through Rio. But we have to keep it within the bounds of the purchasing policies, of the compliance departments, of the legal frameworks. So we have those guardrails in place to ensure that these micro apps can be built safely, effectively, but also to enable some creativity for you and your organization. So imagine what you can send your executives from a dashboard or reporting perspective, and so on and so forth.
And that's where I was going to go, right, EJ? Is like, the promise of ProcureTech apps in the past has been like, oh, you can create all these dashboards, right, for the different stakeholders within your company. But what inevitably happens is you get into some problems when implementing, and then the training goes out the window, the training time, the documentation, and these dashboards, right, these specific user experiences. So that's where I was going to go with the question, but I think you answered it, which is, can I generate stakeholder specific dashboards with this and realize that promise of tailored information based on different stakeholders?
Yeah. If you are a customer on this call and you are getting charged for custom fields and then getting an even bigger bill for a services implementation, please tell them and show them this video, because that is gone. Those days are gone, and you do not need to be paying that much money for a custom field. Rio can take the data and build it however you wish. I am very adamant about that.
I wanted to add something. Like, the point of this is Rio is growing in its ability to be autonomous and to be helpful and to be supportive. And as a leader, we want team members that come in and offer suggestions, make a recommendation, and make it easy for you to say, yes, pick that one, let's go. Yeah. And to the extent that Rio can help make that seamless, Rio becomes the team member that can do the work, bring you the options, and let you pick, and bring the context to make it easy for you to pick that next step. So we talk about human in the loop. Well, what does the human need to know and understand to be in the loop and make that in the loop step quick, efficient, and insightful? So we've heard about the idea of insight to action. Well, this is a dynamic response to a specific bid that was generated on the fly, and lets Rio be the team member that helps you get more done, because you've got kids to get from soccer, team members to coach, and more strategic things to get done.
And as you transition to this next use case, Victor, I think you already answered this question, but for the benefit of everybody, because we're seeing SAP concepts with material masters and the requisition, is Rio able to integrate with other procurement software if they want to read? So
any software. Any software. We have an orchestration engine that, as long as there are the APIs available, then we can and we can build that in real time and show you just how quickly we can build out that workflow for you. And if the APIs aren't available, well, then we just have to do a bit more work to build those integrations. But this goes beyond procurement software, obviously, and procurement dips into HR software a bit, right? You bring those worlds together. Obviously, from a services perspective and contingent labor, that obviously falls into this, and then the greater ERP system as well. But ServiceNow as well. There's a way for onboarding contractors and getting their badges approved. That's fine. We compete with them in some instances, but we also want to complement our companies, and we can build those flows for them and for the company, for the customers. So yeah, absolutely, we integrate into any system. Beautiful.
And I see time racing along here. So EJ, I want to make sure you get to what you wanted to cover in the demo. Yes, so I'll let you go.
Yeah. So I'm going to create the requisition, and then that's going to take me over back to the workflow screen where that needs to have an approval step. So this is where you have the manual intervention stepping in. So you can see every step of the way where there's been manual intervention, and then when Rio needs to come in to do the automated agentic task. In this case, I need to approve that requisition that was created. So I'll just do this very quickly for the sake of time, and approve this. And then you'll be able to see once again how Rio works. So here now, Rio is going to read that Excel spreadsheet with the awarded vendor, and it's going to then create a requisition that quickly. You see that how quickly it created it in ECC? That is an ECC system. That is not something easy to integrate into. And it goes into ECC and it creates a purchase requisition. So then it takes all of the data coming from ECC, and what it's able to do then is generate an email. And it's able to tell me as a, there it is, boom. Okay, right in real time, you see, it just created an email after it created that ECC requisition. So I could take this purchase requisition number, and it's going to take me into ME53N, which then, so I'm in ME53N, right? Now we're back to these screens, which, this system, a lot of you run on this, and that's perfectly fine. Rio can integrate into that system. So now I will go and I will add the new requisition. Okay, and there you see, there's the material number. There is your description, which is tied to all of the server materials that were needed. And it created that requisition in ECC for you and sent it via email, right? So you don't have to go in and manually key that from your Excel document. And then just showing you a few other capabilities, how Rio, like if you want to see if your purchase order has been confirmed. Like you don't have to go into a system anymore. A lot of those portals are just messaging systems anyways. Use the biggest network in the world, which is the email network, and everyone's already onboarded. So I can reach out and I can ask Rio, is my purchase order confirmed by the vendor? Rio can tell you, yes, it's been confirmed. Here's the number. Here's the link to it. Or invoicing status. What is the status of my invoice? I'm a vendor now. Or you can send this from a buyer perspective too, but a vendor can reach out and ask for the status of their invoice. It's really beautiful in the background how Rio is able to conceptualize the email and then branch out into all of these different areas, business processes, based off of the context of the email. So in this case, it says, yes, your invoice has been complete. This was actually a PDF invoice sent from a vendor. And of course, let me just log in real quick to show you how that looks from a vendor perspective. So I'm going to log in actually the vendor didn't need to log into any portal. They can send the PDF invoice via email. But if I'm an accounts payable clerk, I can go in and I can see all of the PDF emailed invoices in this clean dashboard. And I can see when an invoice has been rejected, this one, or it raises some concerns, like when quantities aren't matching, or when it's been fully accepted and posted. Now you can see this was an email invoice. I'll walk you through this flow real quick. This was sent from me. The system, Rio, was able to pick up my email address, which obviously would be like, vendor.com. I don't want to throw out any company names here. And it's able to read this PDF, extract the details, all of the tax codes, everything there, and then it's able to map that to the SAP purchase order. It calls that API, maps it in real time in the system, does the reconciliation across all the three-way match across all of those different documents, and then posts that back into your SAP system. All done by Rio. Now you can include the manual interventions where you want, but if you want this totally autonomous, there's still a full audit log that is also available. It shows you all of the steps Rio's doing, obviously going to be very important as these agents become a part of your organization. So we did the end-to-end flow here, where we were able to show you how Rio handles all of your tedious tasks on Excel and all of your external documents. Let us bring SAP to your area of activity and communication, whether that's email, Excel, what have you. The micro app capability, we just showed you a snippet. You're going to really love what we're going to roll out later this year. But the ability to build a user experience with the data that you have within your organization utilizing Rio. Requisitioning, reducing manual errors and that swivel chair situation, avoiding multiple logins. You don't need to log into 100 different systems and bring new hires into multiple logins. Just let Rio do the work for you. And then PDF invoicing through email, like I said, $3 billion in invoicing volume for one customer alone. And then status updates. Rio will communicate with you in email and in Teams or Slack or Google, whatever your method of communication is, as much as you want. So I think we got some time, Sheena, for you to give us some tough questions now. Let's hear it.
Yeah, that's great. And what I want people to take away with, right, because there's a lot of information in what you said, but to me, it's like that this is a platform and not a solution, right? Where you may have solutions already available as part of that platform, but people can just, as long as you plug into your tools that you already have and you meet suppliers and requesters where they're already working, right? Email, Teams, what have you, you can build it either autonomously with these micro apps that you're releasing, or with the experiences that you already propose, or you can build it out if you need to, but it's a platform, right? It's a toolbox.
Yeah, and one key point, you made a really good point there, and I just want to emphasize, people ask, well, is this intake and orchestration? Yes, intake orchestration is a feature of the platform, not a product. It is a feature of the platform. ETL and middleware is a feature of the platform, not an individual product. So it all merges together now into this agentic platform.
Very cool. And so on that note, I kind of gave you some flowers there. We'll give it over to Sheena to play bad cop.
Okay, so it all sounds wonderful, right? I have my spreadsheets automatically going in the background while I'm sleeping or enjoying a glass of wine. But what I have to ask is, okay, so I'm getting a half day back, right, of work. Am I spending that time setting up and deploying Rio? What does it take to actually set up, manage, deploy this thing? And also, second question, you touched on this a bit earlier, EJ, but as someone who is incredibly guilty of fighting my way into backend systems and creating my own reports and my own way of doing things and the views and cuts of data that I personally want to see and getting hand slapped for that over and over, how do I ensure that my team isn't going to mess things up? What's the governance structure?
Yeah, Sean, I've done enough talking, so I'll let you do some chatting.
Love it. So Sheena, what I love about the question is, we are all on this call the type of folks that will go and make or find or create our own way to solve a problem.
Yep.
And what we're bringing with Rio is another team member that digitally supports and works with us on that journey to go figure it out and do it and find or make a way to make it happen. So the governance comes into the back. We can talk about some of it. I think a lot of it, and we need to get into in more detail offline. But there are a whole set of guidelines and guardrails around what Rio can and can't do. And EJ touched on some of them earlier around the bounds of your policy, the bounds of the integrations. Obviously, there's several different enterprise systems that Rio can plug into, talk to, work with, whether it's an ITSM system, an ERP system, another procurement system. And we've pre-built pretty much the entire supply chain worth of APIs into the SAP ERP. And then obviously there's other more API-rich systems out there that are even easier to integrate and connect into. But you're 100% right. Where some organizations get nervous is, wait, how did you get that data? Well, if you needed that data to get your job done and to understand on time in full or on time performance or lead time or on contract spend for a vendor, then if somebody is slapping your hand for going to understand on contract spend with a vendor, I have a lot of questions for the person that's done the slapping, right? These are not the kinds of behaviors that happen in healthy organizations, because your job, your mission is to go be an amazing steward of the organization's funds to create value. And what we've seen is in organizations that have deployed Rio the fastest, the amount of testing and the amount of change management around rolling it out, I would point to an example of hundreds of unionized staff having a new purchasing policy, purchasing requisitioning rolled out with no training, because it's so easy. You don't need to train them. And that I would suggest is really the bar. right?
Mhm.
Where there's OCM and training, it tends to be in specialized niches of, hey, if you're going to have Rio put its hand up and say, I'm having trouble processing this invoice, I can't find a tax ID, and you told me not to go back and ask the vendor because I couldn't find it, as an example, because you wanted to take that on yourself as an organization and process that, that's cool. We can take that, route that to a specialist to go and show Rio where to find the tax ID, or set up a rule that when Ted sends his invoices, here's Ted's tax ID. He's expensive. We don't want to bother him with extra questions. Whatever that rule is, it's just like an intern that you bring into your team. And when you bring in an intern to your team, you need to help them learn how you run your playbooks, your standard operating procedures. And when you're bringing that intern in, the first little while, they have a lot of questions. And then they don't, often the good ones, don't need to ask the same question twice, because they learn, they evolve, and then that reinforces those guardrails. So the leader that Rio is reporting to within the organization, or the team of, I'll call it Rio supervisors, will ultimately create and reinforce those guardrails for what Rio's doing and supporting you with.
Cool. I mean, we're short on time, Joel.
Yeah, as we transition here to the ProcureTech market map, like, to me, that's in essence is, illustrates one thing I talk about a lot, which is like, as these platforms such as ConvergentIS come on the market and unlock all these possibilities, the challenge becomes governance and knowing what those rules are and explicitly defining them and agreeing with them, with everybody that needs to agree with them, right? And so you spend more time on stakeholder management than actually making the tool do what you want it to do, right? So that's exciting, but also, shifts the focus towards where it needs to be. And so, Sean, as we wrap up the show here, would you tell us this Picasso that you sent us here in terms of the market map? Where do you see Rio playing? Where do you see it going? Any partnerships you want to highlight, that sort of thing, right? This is the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So one, I know we've spent more than a decade as a trusted, close SAP partner. So we've got really deep connections to go and extend and complement a whole bunch of those solutions. Other partnerships, we've got other integrators that are helping to deploy Rio and bring Rio to life for organizations out there, because there are often some strategy and design and other sorts of things that need to go into helping bring that to life. We have several key components here on the spend and analytics side. We've got some spectacular dashboards we'd love to show you when we have more time. Across the top, category management and sourcing, we'll call it light, but we're all talking about procurement professionals here. So, I still tip my hat to folks like Alan at Keelvar and the amazing work that they're doing. I think that what they've done is incredible. And so when you have a reference of what good looks like, we're not going to stand here and say that we're amazing at sourcing. What I would say, though, is that intake and orchestration, as EJ said, is a feature, and agent is fundamentally the category that, or agentic ERP, or agentic resource planning. We thought about agent as a service, but that acronym just wasn't going to work for us or very many other people. And we thought that
fun conversation.
The idea of onboarding, classification, and some of these other tasks around SRM, we absolutely have that. We also have a relationship model that didn't have a circle, but we're bringing that to life as a way to deepen and strengthen supplier relationships relative to an ISO standard that's been developed, and a proud Canadian is leading that. And I would love to be able to talk more about this with folks. We're easy to find, easy to get a hold of, and we'd love to hear from you when folks out there have more questions.
Yeah, and that's a great segue, right? Because I think there's so much ground to cover, and we can't even begin to scratch it in 30 minutes in this type of format. But where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, easy to find us, ConvergentIS.com. I'm Sean, easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm in the comments and so on. And if you look up The Never Ending Climb, this is one of my personal credos and deep beliefs of, we're all here to make the world a better place, leave it better than we found it. And it matters how we treat other people and how we leave them feeling along the way. So we're trying to create a team member that really embodies that kind of a spirit to go help as many people as we can.
And I think Rio's on LinkedIn too, right?
Rio's on LinkedIn. Follow Rio on LinkedIn. He puts out a podcast every Friday.
He makes it himself, by the way.
He makes it himself. This is crazy. But this is rolling out. There's a lot coming this year from the Rio side. So yeah, tell your boss, tell your vendors, tell everyone. The agents are here.
Tell your grandma at the next.
Tell your grandma. Tell your grandma. I think my mom's on this call. Hey, mom.
And so on our side, Sheena at RiseNow, myself at Pure Procurement, we help organizations do the thinking behind the governance, behind the business processes, behind the change management, behind the org structure, behind rolling out and road mapping this kind of technology into your organization. So make sure to get in touch with us if you have questions around that. And if you want to follow along on the road to the ProcureTech Cup, you have the QR code in the middle of the screen to subscribe to the Pure Procurement newsletter. I did not know I was creating a tongue twister with my business when I initially put it in place. But hey, thank you so much for being here this week, Sheena, EJ, Sean. Thanks for tuning in, everybody on the call, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.